Have you ever been scrolling through Netflix or Disney Plus and just get this weird feeling of déjà vu? You know that feeling like you've seen all this before, just with new actors and better CGI? Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to break down a really popular video critique that argues Hollywood isn't just in a trend, it's in the middle of a full-blown remake apocalypse. So let's get right into the big question at the heart of it all.
And that's really the question that kicks everything off, isn't it? Is Hollywood just out of ideas? It's something I think a lot of us have wondered when we hear about another reboot. But the argument we're about to unpack here goes way deeper than that. It suggests there's a huge shift happening in how stories are being told, and maybe more importantly, why they're being retold in the first place. It's less about a lack of new ideas and more about a new purpose for the old ones.
I mean, just to get a sense of the sheer scale we're talking about, take a look at this list. This isn't just the classic Disney animations like Snow White, Lilo and Stitch, or The Little Mermaid. We're also talking about massive fantasy worlds like Harry Potter and Narnia getting the reboot treatment. We've got prequels like Wonka, and even movies that feel like they just came out, like Mean Girls and The Devil Wears Prada. And honestly, this is just scratching the surface. The point the source makes is that this isn't just a phase anymore, it's pretty much become the main way Hollywood operates now.
Okay, so here's the first major point from the critique. These are not just simple shot-for-shot remakes. It's not about just updating the special effects or finding a new cast. The core argument is that the very message, the entire point of these classic stories, is being fundamentally changed to fit our modern world.
And this slide really nails the whole argument using one perfect example, Snow White. On the left, you've got the 1937 original. Her whole motivation, her big dream, is all about finding true love. That's the engine of the story. But then you look at the upcoming 2025 version on the right. According to the source, that focus has been completely flipped. It's not about a prince anymore. It's about her own personal ambition to become a leader.
And this isn't just speculation. Here's the direct quote that the critique uses to back this up, coming from the new Snow White herself, actress Rachel Zegler. She says it right there. The argument being made is that this is a conscious choice to rewrite the character's core dream. The source presents this as a prime example of how the definition of happily ever after is being shifted from finding love to achieving power.
And according to the video, this pattern goes way beyond just Snow White. It argues you can see it in other huge remakes too. Take The Little Mermaid, for instance. The critique says Ariel's motivation was changed from a story about love and curiosity about a new world into more of a girl boss narrative. And it also points to the Lilo and Stitch remake, where the central message of Ohana means family is allegedly being tweaked, with the older sister, Nani, putting her own career goals ahead of the immediate need to keep her family together.
Okay, so if the messages are being rewritten, the obvious next question is why? What's driving this change? Well, the source offers up an explanation, and it all comes down to three letters, DEI: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let's see how this part of the argument is built.
The critique uses the whole situation with Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender as a major piece of evidence. The original creators, Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, very publicly walked away from the live-action show. And this quote from them is, well, it's pretty damning. They're saying straight up that what ended up on screen was not their vision. The critique uses this as a powerful example of what can happen when a new set of corporate priorities might be clashing with the original creator's artistic intent.
Now, this is where the source makes a really pointed connection. Around the same time the Avatar creators left, Netflix published its annual diversity report. And that report showed this number, a massive 58.1% jump in diverse leads in just 5 years. The critique basically puts these two things side by side and suggests a link, arguing that hitting these corporate DEI metrics has become such a high priority that it might, in some cases, overshadow the original creative vision of a project.
And the argument then gets expanded beyond just remakes of animated movies. The source claims this focus on DEI also impacts casting for characters who already have a well-established history or appearance. It points to some of the casting talk around the new Harry Potter series and also brings up the choice of Will Sharp to play Mozart, presenting these as examples where meeting diversity goals might be a factor in casting, even for characters with specific historical description.
All right, so after laying out what it sees as the modern Hollywood approach, the video does something really interesting. It pivots and shows us a completely different philosophy of creation, looking back at what the original creators of these classics actually believed about storytelling. And it's a pretty stark contrast.
The contrast really starts with Walt Disney himself. The source highlights this quote, which was supposedly his whole philosophy for making Snow White. Look at the words he uses: timeless, no age, forever.
The argument here is that Disney's goal wasn't to make something for the 1930s, it was to create something eternal, something built on universal ideas like laughter and dreams that would connect with people across every generation.
Then you have the creator of Star Wars, George Lucas. This quote, which came from actor Hayden Christensen, is presented as another pillar of that old-school philosophy. Creation isn't about lecturing or trying to change the world. It's about building a brand new world from scratch, out of pure imagination, and then, and this is the key part, inviting the audience to come and play in it. The source frames this as a generous act of sharing, not an act of correction. And to really give this whole philosophy a name, the video brings in J.R.R. Tolkien's idea of subcreation. It's this really deep concept that creating these detailed, believable secondary worlds is more than just telling a story. For Tolkien, it was an almost spiritual act. It was a way for us, as created beings, to use our own spark of creativity to pay tribute to a higher creator. It positions storytelling as an act of reverence, not as a political tool.
So this slide really puts it all side by side. It's the whole conflict in a nutshell. On the left, the critique gathers up some stated goals from modern creators. Things like wanting to make men uncomfortable or focusing on a very specific modern message. And on the right, you have the philosophy we just talked about from people like Disney and Lucas, inviting people into a new world, creating timeless dreams. The video presents this as the fundamental clash of creative visions we're seeing today.
All right, this all leads us to the final section of the argument. This is where all those threads, the remakes, the message changes, the different philosophies, all get tied together into one big, overarching thesis that tries to explain everything.
And here it is. The central thesis of the entire video is that the primary mode of storytelling in Hollywood has shifted from creation to critique. So instead of building brand new worlds from the ground up, the source argues that the main job of a storyteller today is to take old, beloved worlds and basically pick them apart, to analyze them through a modern political lens and point out everything that was supposedly wrong with them.
So what does that process of critique actually look like? Well, according to the source, it's a four-step formula. First, you take a timeless classic. But instead of asking, what made this so amazing, the first question is now, what's wrong with it? Then you analyze it for all the ways it fails to meet today's standards. And finally, you fix it by injecting a new, modern ideology into a remake. The source really frames this as a process of ideological correction, not artistic creation.
And the end result of all this, the source argues, is that we lose something really, really important. The reverence for the original story just kind of evaporates. And when that goes, so do the universal themes that made it a classic in the first place. Simple, powerful ideas about love, good versus evil, sacrifice, the very things that let these stories connect with millions of people for generations.
And so, the video leaves us with this final, really powerful question to think about. If the main thing our culture is doing right now is looking back and remaking the classics of the past through a modern lens, what original stories are we creating today that have a chance of becoming the timeless classics for future generations? It's a heavy question, and it's definitely one worth chewing on.